He gets to do it.
Yeah, man of many hats. Exactly.
All right, seeing that it is 7 p.m., we're going to call to order this meeting of the Richfield HRA, and please note the attendance. The first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the special HRA session of February 17th, 2015, and of the regular HRA meeting of February 17th, 2015.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of both the HRA work session and the regular meeting on February 17th, 2015, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we've approved the minutes. Our next item is the approval of the agenda for this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, we've approved the agenda. All right, our next item is a public hearing regarding a resolution authorizing the sale of 6637 Fifth Avenue to Endress Custom Homes and a contract for private development with Endress Custom Homes for the construction of a single-family home under the Richfield Rediscovered program. Mr. Devich?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the HRA. I'm passing this item along to Karen Barton to deliver the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Andrus Custom Homes is applying to purchase the Housing and Redevelopment Authority's lot owned at 6637 Fifth Avenue to construct a new single-family home. The new home is proposed to be a two-story home with 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and an attached 2-car garage. The new home would be approximately 1,900 square feet with an end value exceeding $340,000. The house would be built speculatively as there's no buyer currently identified. The HRA property currently shares a driveway with the property to the north, and the HRA property has been marketed with the expectation that future development would accommodate the shared driveway in some fashion. The builder is proposing to cut the shared driveway off at the north property line as part of the new construction, and in so doing, this will leave the neighboring property to the north with an approximately 10-foot wide driveway. Although the 10-foot wide width does meet minimum requirements, it is a significant reduction to the driveway width that the property owners have been accustomed to having with the shared driveway. Additionally, the existing driveway slopes downward from the garage, and the steps to the side entrance of the home encroaches into the driveway. In an effort to minimize the negative impact to the neighbors to the north, staff is recommending the establishment of a driveway easement across the property across the HRA property to allow convenient and safe access to the garage at 6633 Fifth Avenue. The recommended easement would be 3 feet in width. It is anticipated that either Andrus Custom Homes would leave concrete in this easement area or that the neighboring property would pave this area. The HRA acquired the 50-foot wide property and structure in 2010 for $105,000. The appraised value of the property as a vacant lot is $48,000. Under the terms of the contract, the builder would pay the $48,000 at closing, and the builder would also be eligible for a $5,000 credit through the meeting the Min Green Path standards for energy efficiency. The neighbors that own 6633 Fifth are here in the audience tonight, as well as Dustin Andrus from Andrus Custom Homes.
All right, are there any of the commissioners that have any questions?
I have a question. Karen, did I remember wrong the requirements for the Richfield Rediscovered program where you had to have a ultimate buyer for the home rather than it be a spec home?
Commissioner, that is correct, that in the guidelines it does call for having an identified end buyer, but it is at the HRA's discretion to allow for speculative construction as well.
Have they ever been approached about that question, or is this the first time?
I don't recall there ever being a spec home built.
I can't recall if we've had a spec home built before. I think there's always been an identified end buyer.
My question is too, is how have the negotiations gone between the property that's losing the driveway access or the width of the driveway, some of the use of that? How has that been going?
The property owners to the north are, understanding of the driveway being shared without any agreement, but do feel it would be a hardship on them to have it down to the 10-foot width because of the steps encroaching and the length of the driveway. The builder has expressed that he does not want to provide an easement or does not want to buy the property with an HRA granted easement prior to the sale.
Has he offered to compensate them in any way?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, since this is a public hearing, is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment? If so, could you state your name and address and then write it down on the sheet that's up at the podium? And you have 3 minutes once you begin. Thank you.
I'm Mary Lenander. We're the property next door, and I have some pictures. If- The garbage can kind of shows where the snow would be. Just get access coming in and out of the garage.
Oh, you need to be in the mic, please,
Oh,
so we
I'm
can hear
sorry.
you. We want to hear you.
The garbage can shows where the snow would be, and that's the property line of coming down in and out of the garage. And this would be a hard access if we had a normal winter, not like this last winter where there was no snow. So it would just be an inconvenience after being there 26 years of knowing there was a joint driveway and having access to it all the time. We'd just like you to take into consideration what we have to go through every day.
I'm her sister. I also live with her. My name's Janet Lenander. I've lived with her the whole time. I think one of our concerns too is in this photo here, where the doorway is. That's where the snow really builds up.
Yeah.
And so getting in and out with a smaller or narrower driveway might be a problem, because we've always, if it built up where that doorway is, we've been able to kind of swing around it. So now, with it dipping down like that, that's where the snow really builds up. So that's, one of our concerns stuff. So, anything else?
Okay,
That's just.
you've got about a minute left if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to comment?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Andrus.
Hello.
Hi, could you also state your name?
Yes, my name is Dustin Endress. I'm the one looking to buy the property. So if I might start off with just to kind of do some comparisons. The lanes on 76th Street in Richfield are each 10 foot wide. The lanes on 73rd Street in Richfield are 9'6" wide. The driveway at 6621 Fifth Avenue is 9 foot wide. The driveway at 6617 Fifth Avenue is 10 foot wide. The driveway at 6615 Fifth Avenue is 9 foot wide. All of these driveways are set up exactly the same as the property to the north of this property. Standard garage door is 8 foot wide. I think that information alone is enough to complete my argument about this. But I will add that I'm all for being a good neighbor, but I don't see the need for an easement. The residents to the north have benefited from the luxury of this excess width for quite a while, but in my opinion, they have no right to it, and they're not entitled to it, and they don't need it just the same as the other 3 properties mentioned before do not need an easement from their neighbors either. By means of logical and objective reasoning, based on the facts above, a 10-foot, 3-foot wide drive is more than sufficient, and so there's no reason to encroach and devalue the land at 6637. The area that's tightest is obviously next to the house. The house is only about 25 feet in length, or deep. Pulling a car into a garage through an 8-foot wide stall, you have to move the car for about 20 feet. So you're basically going a little bit more than the distance of a garage to move a car, and you still have over 10 feet. You have open air on each side. There aren't steps encroaching anywhere. It's pretty straight, the new stoop that they did there. And so I think that that this is not necessary. So I'd like to hear further comment. I can make more comments if I need to, or other things to my argument before it gets voted on. So I don't think it's necessary. It may be a little bit more difficult now, but it is obviously doable. Plenty of other residents are doing it as well. So,
All right, thank you, Mr. Andrus.
Thank
Is
you.
there anyone else who wishes to speak before we ask questions? All right, Commissioner Rubenstein?
Yes,
Excuse me for a second. I believe I need to close the public hearing. Okay, go ahead.
Ask to close the public hearing, you have to make a motion.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
All right, is
I'll
there a
second.
second? All right, all in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Commissioner Rubenstein?
when the new house is going to be built, is it designed so that the driveways would be adjacent to each other, or the house would be up, and the lawn would be up against this driveway? Are they,
All right, so could the staff please answer that?
or
I
the
think
staff?
we have
Yeah,
pictures.
Somebody.
Public hearing closed.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the driveway of the proposed house is moved to the other side of the lot.
All right, are we going to put it up on display, please?
Um,
I have the same question, just to follow up on that. Do we know where the line of demarcation is for the property, and where does it run on that driveway, and how far?
There is also a survey there that John can put up, and it shows that it does run down the driveway, middle of the driveway.
And how far over? How many feet?
From the proposed structure?
No, how many
No,
feet
from-
does it run over from right now, the property line? How many
It's a
feet?
20-foot wide driveway, so it's 10 feet on either side.
10 feet.
And can you point out the new driveways to
It's
address
10.8.
Commissioner Rubenstein's question?
The new driveway
It's,
would be on the other side of the house, so they won't be sharing a
That's not
driveway,
the
will
case,
they?
according to this.
It's,
Sharing it, but they're not anymore.
Oh, they're,
And so they don't
okay.
want to have the easement on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you with my pen. The existing driveway is 20 feet here. You can, I don't know if you can tell or not, there's a portion of it that's kind of hatched here as gray. And that's where Mr. Endress is proposing to remove that driveway, that paved portion, and then would rebuild the new driveway for the new house. Maybe like 6 or 7 feet over from the edge of that, just kind of eyeballing it. So there would be, under the way Mr. Endress is proposing it, there would probably be a 15 to 20 foot area between the two driveways.
I have a question.
all right, Commissioner Gepner?
John, does the property to the north then would have their new narrow driveway right on their property line?
Correct.
Does that make them non-conforming to, because are you supposed to have a buffer
Yeah.
between your drive and your
Yeah.
property line?
That would make them legally non-conforming.
Yeah.
And that's something that if somebody were to build today with the permission of their neighbor, they can do. So.
Are there any further questions or discussion by commissioners?
This would be saying that we're going to eliminate that easement for those folks and have that big two-story house right up against their house. Is that correct? We're eliminating an easement that we
No.
would otherwise require?
No, there is no easement currently. We're
Okay.
proposing that an easement of 3 feet be granted for driveway to the property to the north.
So 3 feet on the edge of the new property.
Where the house, further up, right where the house comes in, John? Are we all in compliance with the easements there, or are we asking for something different?
Well, what staff is proposing is the entire length of this driveway to provide the 3-foot easement. And that is something the new house would still be in compliance.
But the old
With-
house would not.
They would both be, under the legally non-conforming rules and zoning. They'd both be compliant.
Back to my original question, was there a thought as to why this staff is moving this forward when it doesn't conform with the requirement that a Richfield Rediscover house has to have a buyer?
We suggested that we would bring it forward for your decision on that. That doesn't necessarily pose a significant problem from our perspective, that there isn't a buyer given the market currently. And Mr. Endres has indicated that he has a number of people interested, but just doesn't have an buyer set up currently.
And it's likely that any home that would be built on this lot would have this similar challenge?
Yeah, it could, yes, assuming if they're moving the driveway to another location, yes, it would have the same challenge.
And then the plus is that the community gets another new home in Richfield.
Absolutely.
Is it also possible that they could build a house that could be conforming on that lot?
The house that's proposed is conforming.
No, but I mean, that
Oh.
wouldn't take off the driveway and everything. There's other homes that we built that.
And certainly somebody could propose a house with a garage located on the edge of the property, or a detached garage that could use this shared drive and continue the relationship of the shared driveway. It's kind of speculating on what somebody might do in the future, but it's certainly possible. Correct.
Without an easement.
Right.
Correct. There was no easement
just-
and no formal agreement,
Yeah.
no written agreement.
Just people being neighbors.
Yeah. It's a public hearing there.
All right, the public hearing is closed, so if there's a question that can be answered, we can do that, but if it's just to give comment, that's not appropriate. Commissioners, is there any further discussion, or is anyone interested?
Well, it's my thought, and I remember 3, 4, 5 years ago, and my recollection is that there were bids on some of the lots, and the one that had the signed contract is the one that got them. I'm not necessarily against speculative building and everything, but it would seem to me that, and based on my recollection, it sounds like everybody else, is this the first time we've allowed one to be built on spec? And I don't feel asking for a 3-foot easement by granting and letting you build spec is an onerous or a task. So if we're going to do this, the only way I'm approving it is if we're going to sell it on spec, there's going to be a 3-foot easement.
There's got to be an easement, I agree.
The current proposal does have an easement in it, correct?
Correct, and that would be in the contract that states, we would actually, the HRA would place the easement prior to selling the property to Mr. Andres.
Okay, so the current motion that is here would have a 3-foot easement.
Yes.
All right.
You can't.
Is there any further questions, or does someone wish to place the motion?
I have concern too, spec building and that big of a house, and, yeah, it's just right up next to the neighbors.
So if we do nothing, then this does not go forward, and if someone makes a motion, it does.
Yeah, I'm okay moving it, as presented by staff with the 3-foot easement. Let me just get to where it is.
Go over here,
Here, I can read it if you want to
Okay,
make the
at this
motion as
time,
presented.
I would move the resolution regarding
You have
this,
to go
oh,
into it, click
wrong
on
one.
it, you
That's,
got
no,
it,
that's
click on it,
the wrong
click.
one.
Yeah,
All right.
click on it and then go down. You'll have it.
So what you're moving is to approve a resolution authorizing the sale of 6637 Fifth Avenue to Endress Custom Homes Incorporated, and authorize the execution of a contract for private development between the Housing and Redevelopment Authority and Endress Custom Homes Incorporated for the redevelopment of 6637 Fifth Avenue. And it's our understanding that that agreement does include the 3-foot easement.
That's correct.
All right, is there a second?
Well said, and I second.
Well, no, I was reading. So Commissioner Elliott has moved it. Is there a second? I will go ahead and second it, and then we'll put the motion before the commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
All right, did we want to have a record the, Mr. Devich, do you have it recorded?
No, but it would be great if you did a voice vote so I could get it right.
All right, so Commissioner Elliott,
Yay.
Commissioner Gotel,
No.
Commissioner Gepner,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubenstein, and the chair votes aye. So we have passed
3-2.
3 to 2.
Passes.
Yes.
Can we let Mr. Andrus ask his question, just, you know?
They won't change anything, but if no one has any objections to that, that would be fine.
Why don't you come up to the microphone?
Come up to the microphone, please.
Well, I guess I had a few things. In my opinion, I really disagree that we're devaluing their property. There's absolutely no question we're improving the block and improving the neighborhood. Yes, it's a 2-story, but that's where everybody's buying. And you know, we've tried to do ramblers like with what we tried to do with 10th Avenue, but we just can't get the appraisals to work for what people want to build. So 2 stories is kind of where it's going. We designed a home, the one that we chose for this lot is one that we've done on 14th Avenue and 5th Avenue. They're modest-sized homes, compact and efficiently done, and nicely done too. And I pointed out 3 different other properties on that same block that have driveways that are narrower than the 10-foot 3 that would be on this northern property. And also I pointed out where there's streets in Richfield that are striped less than 10 feet. So I really don't see this as an objective reasoning here. I think this is, I don't think that it's a good idea. It's just like someone
Sir,
picked it.
did you have a question? You said you
Well-
had a question.
Supposed
This,
to be
My question, I guess, is what was your reasoning for that decision to allow that 3-foot easement? Who picked that out of a hat? Who picked that number out of a hat? Because I had even talked about this with Derek over in engineering, and he said that you know, he'd maybe think about like a 2-foot easement or something, and then so somebody comes back with 3-foot. How did we get to that point? How did we
Okay.
get to the 3-foot
Thank-
easement?
And that's
thank you,
question
sir.
to staff.
That's
Yes.
a question for staff, is how we came up with the 3-foot easement. Thank you.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, staff came up with a 3-foot easement based on the request from the owners to the north. They were requesting a 4-foot easement. We also spoke with Derek in engineering, and you know, he felt that a 12-foot driveway is a minimum width. And he actually, looking at the aerials, felt that their driveway is close to 9 feet as it would exist cut off. So that's where we came up with the 3-foot easement.
All right, thank you. All right, at this
That's-
point, we're going to move the agenda. We've dealt with that issue, and the parties can decide whether or not they choose to sign. All right, moving on to agenda item 4. It's consideration of a resolution regarding the sale of 2517 West 76th Street to the Greater Metropolitan Housing Corporation and approval of a contract for development with the Greater Metropolitan Housing Corporation for the development of 5 townhomes. So we'll need to take this item from the table, and if, Mr. Devich?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the HRA, this is one where you folks have seen this before. It's been brought a couple of times. I think the first time the HRA was not necessarily pleased with the drawing with the elevations. Then it came back a second time, and it seemed like the HRA was okay with the elevations that came back, and it was moved forward on that assumption. So I'm going to have Karen make the presentation to the HRA, and again, it's built on the most recent plan that you folks have seen.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The Greater Metropolitan Housing Corporation is proposing to purchase the property at 2517 West 76th Street from the Housing and Redevelopment Authority for the development of 5 attached townhomes. On January 20th of this year, the HRA conducted and closed a public hearing at which the Greater Metropolitan Housing Corporation, also known as GIMIC, had proposed a 6-unit townhome development with 4 two-bedroom units with single-car garages and 2 3-bedroom units with 2-car garage. Several of the HRA members at that time expressed a desire to see fewer units and for all units to offer 2-car garage. The HRA did table the discussion at that time and asked GIMIC to present options at a future work session. Subsequently, on February 17th, at an HRA work session, GIMIC did present 4 alternative plans, of which the HRA directed GIMIC to proceed with a plan for the 5 units with 2-car garages. If approved, the townhomes would offer 1,400 square feet of finished living and include 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and an attached 2-car garage, with estimated sale prices between $250,000 and $275,000. Buyers would also have the option of finishing the basement for additional bedroom and living space. The proposed townhomes would have a traditional design and height that would complement the existing homes in the area. And while finished space would be an option in the lower levels, the units would provide single level living on the main level of the homes. The homes are also proposed to incorporate green design and efficiency standards using the Minnesota Green Communities criteria. The HRA originally purchased the property in 2010 utilizing federal community development block grant funds. Those funds do require that 51% of the units be developed and sold as affordable housing to households with incomes no greater than 80% of the Twin Cities area median income. If the project is approved, 3 of the units would be sold to qualifying households, and 2 of the units would be sold with no income restrictions. The contract for development would require that GIMIC to ensure affordability in accordance with CDBG requirements. If approved, GIMIC and the HRA will enter into the contract for the purchase of the property and subsequent construction of the townhomes. The contract provides for the sale of the property to GIMIC for $1 and for the use of $100,000 in HRA housing and redevelopment funds to contribute toward construction costs to ensure affordability. That assistance is needed to cover the gap between the cost of the development and the anticipated sale proceeds, and in maintaining the affordability of the 3 units. Housing and redevelopment funds can be used towards construction costs of units that meet state statute income requirements. The CDBG guidelines do not require repayment of the funds for the acquisition costs of the property as long as 51% or more of the units are developed as affordable. We do have a representative, Eden Spencer from GIMIC here tonight, and I can put up a graphic of the townhomes as well.
All right, thank you. Does anyone on the commission have a question? Commissioner Elliott?
I've just got a question. When we talk about a contribution from HRA Housing and Redevelopment Funds of $100,000, do we do a cost analysis to legitimize the use of those funds to reduce it so that we can make 3 of them fit within the pricing guidelines? I'm just curious. I mean, if we take that, put it on paper, and figure out how that computes against the construction costs.
Chair Temple, Commissioner Elliott. Yes, the GIMIC did do a cost analysis, and these funds are for covering the gap and offsetting the construction costs to ensure the affordability.
Right, but it's kind of like unnamed person releasing emails. I mean, did we do our own? I mean, we can take it from the people that are taking the money. And I'm just curious, do we do a double check on it to make sure it all computes?
We do, because they have to submit qualifying costs in order to be reimbursed with these funds. So if they did not have qualifying costs, then they will not get reimbursed the full $100,000.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm going to need a little more explanation on that. You talk about qualifying costs and you talk about reimbursement. So is this as construction's going on, do we set it off, or do we just give them the $100,000 and say, okay, make sure you have 3 affordable units?
They construct the units, and at the end of the construction is when we would reimburse the eligible costs.
Okay,
These funds that are being used are generated through tax increment, and this is an eligible use for construction, but they do have to submit verifiably eligible costs for it to be reimbursed.
Thank you. Commissioner Gotel?
So first of all, I want to thank GIMIC for coming back to us for looking at this and looking at this differently and everything. There were a lot of really great changes that I saw in the floor plan, and we definitely need some townhomes of this size, I think, in our community, and the ability to have the basement. My one good question, and I noticed in the pictures that the pictures are slided so you don't see the garages in the front. And the whole thing is the one big thing was those big they're going to be bigger than the front of the door or the entryway, even though they're set back some, why they weren't pushed to the side or the back of the property, because it's going to look like garage doors. I realize they were varied, but they still look like big garage doors in the front. And that's kind of unsightly, actually, to look at that way. And I know that I commented on that the first time.
That might.
All right, the staff is going to... Could you state your name again for the audience?
Yes, I'm Eden Spencer. I'm project manager at GIMIC. And so I just brought a different rendering that shows some different style garage doors. Right now, a lot of the development that's happening, they kind of keep it in the same color palette as the homes, or they make it kind of an accent detail versus just being a big white garage. And so that's kind of what we're thinking. And this is really just a rendering right now from the architect. We're thinking, we can do some brick, we can do some difference with the columns, we can mix it up a little bit right now, moving forward.
Well, with fewer units, why didn't you think about putting the garages behind?
Permeable surface, just with the entrance, it would have to come off of Sheridan. And really, it makes the entire backyard be one big parking lot.
So, isn't it going to be hard coming off of 76th Street even more so?
Well, yeah, I mean, you really couldn't do a curb cut from 76th Street.
So where's the curb cut?
There's several curb cuts
Yeah,
into each
but it
garage.
looks like that's facing.
It faces Sheridan.
That's facing Sheridan.
It's
The
facing
fronts
Sheridan.
are facing
Yep.
Sheridan.
The fronts are facing Sheridan. Okay. Right. I could have wished for the different layout with those garages. That's not attractive. And I know we've been trying to push garages to the back so that they don't look like they're the biggest part of the project.
No, definitely. And if the site had been a little bit deeper, it would have been a little bit easier to do that because we could have set it back a little bit. But really, if we do it in the back, there's going to be very little green space for people to enjoy.
All right, Commissioner Gepner?
I have a number of questions. I wasn't here last month when you made a presentation to this group at a study session. I got some information mailed to me that showed both 1- and 2-car garage plans, but the 1-car garage is not applicable currently?
Correct. We eliminated the 1-car garage
Okay.
plan.
Then a question for Karen is, on the original proposal, would it still be the land for $1 and $100,000 of assistance? Or was
Yes.
it different?
Um,
Because we didn't talk about that initially, I don't think.
Yep, that's the original proposal as well. That
And-
did not change.
And are these properties, because it's on a residential street, that they can't get any close to the roadway than 35 feet? So they couldn't be pushed further forward to give them more room in the back so that they could have rear driveways and still have a backyard?
I don't know offhand what the required setback was on that street.
Mr. Stark?
Thank you, Chair Supple and Commissioners. I believe there is a front yard setback. I can't remember if it's 30 feet or 35 feet. It's something in that neighborhood. I can tell you that 30. Yep. I can tell you that we did go, so a setback is something that can be overcome with a variance. So we did work with Gimmick on, site plan after site plan after site plan of trying to make this work. And as Ms. Spencer noted, if you were to have the garages backloaded, coming off the back of the property, because it would need to be a shared driveway, you also need room for cars to be able to pass each other or to maneuver in that driveway. So to provide the shared driveway and then driveways coming off of it, even if you were to be able to push up the properties, not only would it affect the livability of the site by having that much pavement in the backyards, it would also probably have conflicted with the impervious surface requirements in zoning. So then the planning commission would have been faced with this kind of conflicting variances. Do we provide a variance to reduce the setback in the front, which leads to the requirement of another variance for impervious area? And the rule on variances is the need for the variance can't be caused by the project itself. So it was kind of a catch-22, which you really couldn't solve for a variance. So I don't know if that's a longer answer than you were looking for.
So we have another parcel that's a challenge. They've come up with a solution that was better than the original plan. We get 5 new residences in Richfield. We get the $100,000 paid back in tax increment financing funds because of the increased taxes that the project will provide. And right now, there's no taxes on the property, right? So.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
All right. Are you making a motion?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, is there a second? I'll second it. Okay, it's been moved to approve a resolution authorizing the sale of 2517 West 76th Street to the Greater Metropolitan Housing Corporation and approve a contract for development with Greater Metropolitan Housing Corporation for the development of 5 townhomes. It's been moved and seconded. I see no further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we've passed agenda item number 4.
My eyes just imagine what it's going to look like. Very excited about this.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 5. This is consideration of an interfund loan for the advance of property acquisition costs in the Cedar Avenue Tax Increment Financing District. Mr. Devich?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the HRA. This item pertains to our continuing need to try and do something to assist development over on the Cedar Avenue project. What needs to happen is you'll see in the next item, there are some homes that have become available that would really, that we could be able to obtain at a much lower cost than having to go getting them through development. And at the same time, we need to transfer some funds in terms of an interfund loan, take advantage of that acquisition. And with the specifics of that, I'm going to ask Karen Barton to make the presentation. Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The Cedar Point housing area, which is bounded by Richfield Parkway to the east, 16th Avenue to the west, 63rd Street to the north, and 65th Street to the south, was established as a designated redevelopment area to provide a transition between the commercial uses in the Cedar Point Commons and the single-family residential area to the west. This two-block redevelopment area was previously occupied by 29 single-family residential properties. 15 of the properties fronting 17th Avenue, which is now Richfield Parkway, were acquired by the city and demolished for the construction of Richfield Parkway. 13 single-family residential properties facing 16th Avenue remain to be acquired and demolished. In an effort to facilitate the redevelopment of that area, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority desires to acquire various remaining properties in that project area. In September 2006, the City Council and the HRA adopted resolutions approving the establishment of the Cedar Avenue Tax Increment Financing District, which encompasses the Cedar Point housing area. Acquisition costs are an eligible expense within that TIF district. Staff is recommending that the HRA establish an interfund loan for an amount not to exceed $565,000 to authorize upfront payment for acquisition and other qualified costs. The source of the funds will be the HRA's development fund, and upon redevelopment of the site, tax increment generated by such a development could be used to reimburse this fund. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Actually, I think this is a great opportunity.
I have a question. How'd you come up with the dollar amount?
We based that on the acquisition costs that we're looking at of 2 properties in the area, and that would allow us a 3rd property should one come available.
And do you have properties in mind or willing sellers or something that?
We have 2 properties which are in the next agenda item.
Okay.
And then the 3rd, we're just holding those funds in case an opportunity arises for another property.
Commissioner Rubenstein?
It looks to me, I haven't Google Earth or whatever, that these 2 properties are right next to each other, separated by a side street by like 64th Street or 65th?
No.
They're not next, they're
No.
not neighboring properties?
No.
Okay.
And will we demolish them, or will we leave them up and have them for rental, or what will we do with them?
It's our intent at this point to leave them up and have the developer, whoever comes in and is chosen for the site, to develop them along with the other properties that are acquired, because it will be a lot more affordable if they have multiples to be
But then will they
demolished.
be abandoned properties, just left empty?
They will be vacant for a period of time, yes.
Karen, has any consideration been given to what it does to the people who remain there when you start creating vacant lots next to them?
The properties would be maintained. We will, of course, make sure that the grass is mowed and things are picked up and the properties are taken care of so they don't look
I'm thinking in
unsightly.
terms of the psychological aspects of, the neighborhood is deteriorating, I better get out of here and.
I know that obviously it is always a little disconcerting to people to know that there is an empty house in their neighborhood or in their block, but this is an area that has been designated for a long time as redevelopment, so the people living there are not unaware that we're working diligently to try and get this area redeveloped.
Will there be a similar policy as what they do with foreclosed homes? I know public safety goes around and checks on them from time to time. Would that be a similar thing?
Yes, we absolutely routinely go out and so we have staff that drives by the properties and make sure newspapers are picked up, and we have a mowing service that comes out and regularly mows the lots and maintains bushes and shrubs and things like that.
Mr. Devich?
Yes, if I could add, when we first started trying to assemble properties for Richfield Parkway, we kind of did the same thing with 17th. There were a few properties we picked up on the front end, and we bought those properties, and they were ahead of what was, then taken out in a larger swath, so to speak, when we came to the point of building the road. And, we looked at the kind of things that you brought up, Commissioner Gepner, about making sure that the properties, looked good and the neighborhood didn't get a feeling of abandonment, so to speak. But, at the same time, I can remember it was quite a few years ago when the folks over there were told that was the next project that the city and the HRA was going to try to accomplish and get that development done. So, in essence, they've been sitting and waiting for a long time to have this fulfilled.
And how many properties on the other side are need to be acquired? How many? What's the number?
There's 13 that
13, so
remain.
we'll have 2. If we take 2, there'll be
That would be 11.
11. Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the purchase of real property. Excuse me, I'm on the wrong one. I'll make a, I'm looking at all my items. I'll make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing an inter-fund loan for the advance of property acquisition costs in the Cedar Avenue Tax Increment Financing District.
Is there a second?
There is.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've passed the resolution. Okay, next item on the agenda, we will be moving on to item number 6, which is consideration of a resolution authorizing the purchase of real property at 6333 and 6401 16th Avenue. Mr. Devich?
Thank you, Chair Supple, members of the HRA. And as we just got through talking about, right now there happens to be the opportunity to pick up 2 properties, one at 6333, one at 6401. And I know one of them has a for sale sign on the front, in the front of it. The other doesn't, but it's still for sale. And it's just a great opportunity for us to be able to pick those properties up. So I'm going to ask Karen Barton to make that report to the HRA.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Supple and Commissioners. As was mentioned, the property at 6333 16th Avenue was listed for sale for $189,900 through the MLS Multiple Listing Service in February of this year. And we had an appraisal done of the property, and the appraisal came back valuing it at $179,000. The seller at this point has indicated a willingness to sell the property to the HRA for $184,300. The owner of 6401 16th Avenue has approached the HRA about purchasing his property. We had a property appraisal done there last fall, and it came back at $185,000. An update of that appraisal recently values it currently at $180,000. The property owner has agreed to sell the property to the HRA for $185,000, and he actually has signed a purchase agreement already. I have it here tonight. Both properties are located in the Cedar Avenue corridor redevelopment area, as it was identified in 2004, and are prime candidates for acquisition to facilitate the eventual redevelopment of Cedar Point housing area, which is bounded it's the 6,300 and 6,400 blocks of 16th Avenue and Richfield Parkway. The area is currently occupied by single-family homes, but is zoned MR3, which is high-density residential. Funding is available through the HRA's development fund and would be reimbursed through TIF, pending the prior approval of the interfund loan, which just occurred. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Gepner?
Karen, if these were ultimately acquired later as part of a acquisition, it's likely that somebody or the city would have to pay a whole lot more?
Yes.
So this is a good deal and a value?
Absolutely.
All right, are there any other questions? All right. Do we have a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved to approve and seconded to approve a resolution authorizing the purchase of real property at 6333 and 6401 16th Avenue. Seeing no further discussion, we'll put the matter before the commission. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've approved the motion.
I have a question for Ms. Barton.
Go ahead.
Do we have any idea if the current owners of these properties have any intention of staying in Richfield once their properties are sold?
The owner of 6333 has already moved out and has left the state, to my knowledge. And the owner at 6401, I do not know
Okay,
what his intentions are.
all right. All right, we'll move on then to the HRA discussion items, which is agenda item 7. Commissioner Rubenstein has asked to put something before us.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Supple. Last Tuesday, I had the opportunity of serving in 2 capacities, both as a member of the HRA, for which I was there not officially, but nevertheless, and also in my capacity as a member of the Hennepin County Library Board. The meeting was at the Southdale Library and Service Center, Courts Building, and it was called by County Administrator David Ho. The subject of the meeting was a complete redevelopment of the site where the library, courthouse, and service center now stand. And he presented some plans. Some of those plans are imminently going to be executed. The service center is going to be moving from that area to into Southdale. Interesting, and I think it's a great idea. The court building is going to be moving down to the Bloomington Civic Center for a variety of very good reasons. And the library building is going to be demolished and rebuilt and relocated on the northwest corner of the current property at York and 70th. That's going to leave a lot of property that they're trying to figure out what should we do with this property. It does belong to Hennepin County. And there were no proposals put forward at that time. Teresa Schmia, I believe, was at that meeting, and another city representative, I can't remember.
We had representatives from Public Safety, we had representatives from the city clerk's office, Teresa Shima, and the city clerk, Elizabeth Van Hoos, were there, and I believe that Deputy Police Chief Mike Coop was there.
I think he was too. When it came time for comments and questions, I decided to make an observation and a request because they had named who was to be on the committee to make decisions as to what's going on in that spot. And there was nobody from Richfield mentioned. And I suggested that they do have somebody from Richfield because the property will be right on, is right on Xerxes as well. And I alluded to, but did not state directly, the problems that there have been regarding some redevelopment on York that has adversely affected people who live in Richfield on Xerxes Avenue. They took it into consideration at that time, and after the meeting was over, Mr. Ho approached me and thanked me for making that suggestion. He commented that he was aware of the project that I had alluded to and did not want to have the same kind of conflict associated with this new project regarding the library site. And so what I brought here, I brought a couple copies of the slideshow that they used, which was really a very good slideshow to describe what's happening now, what can happen, and I thought I'd bring it in. Perhaps you can scan it or borrow it from Hennepin County so that it can be shared with the rest of the members of the HRA, with the Planning Commission, with the City Council, et cetera, because I think it would be of great interest to everybody involved there.
Thank you.
May I comment to that? First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Rubenstein for being so astute and being on top of this. City manager and I had talked to the mayor of Edina, who did give us some information, and County Commissioner Randy Johnson didn't have as much detail as you had at the time. We did know that there was reconstruction going on that site, and we had discussions about what we would like to see as far as for the border on Richfield as far as for height.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all need to keep our eyes on this, and I really thank you for being our advocate. And yes, somebody should be on that committee
Yep.
as well, from Richfield, and I hope that they choose somebody wisely, and we'll have a city representation on that. I think that Edina and the city manager of Edina were a lot more sensitive at this time, asking what our preferences were around that. So there was some good conversation, I believe, around that, but there's always the proof is in the details, and see what really comes up out of this, right? I made it very clear, because they were talking about parking in the back there, that would be okay, except that they would need to make sure that lights were screened and not just screened through the summertime, through the winter as well. So,
Well, I've made my own little suggestion informally that we should look for various community partners to make these public amenities, and said, hey, let's talk to McPhail. Be an interesting addition to the communities around
with
here.
the library, because they're moving, so I hadn't heard that they were moving so many of the other services and had
Yeah.
other locations, because they were looking for a combined location for some of those for some time, and I guess that did not happen.
Mhm.
So, it's interesting.
Are there any other HRA discussion items?
May I just ask, what's the update on the policy committee for housing and redevelopment?
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Devich? Go
Commissioner
ahead.
Gotel. We were waiting for the Maxfield research to get us the research information on market rate rentals
Oh, okay.
for the city. And we just received that last week, and we're reviewing it. And then we are going to reconvene the group to address the market rate rental portion of the housing policy.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion items? All right, then we will move forward with agenda item 8, the executive director report.
Madam Chair, members of the
Can't
HRA, I
speak.
don't have anything specific.
All right, thank you. Then item 9 is the claims and payroll.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the claims and payroll, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, we've approved the claims and payroll. Seeing that we have no further business, we stand adjourned.